Welcome to the Future of Payroll and Workforce Management Insights by HR.com, your go-to resource for insights into payroll and workforce management. From navigating compliance and technology trends to exploring the latest in global payroll solutions, we're here to keep you ahead of the curve. Join us as we dive into the forces reshaping payroll and share practical strategies to optimize your workforce management. Let's get started. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Future of Payroll and Workforce Management, a podcast here at HR.com, where I am Executive Community Leader of Future of Payroll, and I do a few other things, but enough about me. I'd like to welcome my guest, CEO of Instant Financial, Tal Clark.
Hello, Brent. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for agreeing to be a guest on the podcast. This is going to be a fascinating topic today. We're going to talk about payments and FinTech and PayTech and how it's really accentuating the employee experience and payroll and all of that. But before we get into that, what I'd like to ask all of my guests is just this real simple question: is what is your passion for the industry you're in? What galvanizes you, gets you up in the morning and really fired up?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is one that, I've always been involved in businesses that have facilitated people's access more than anything else, and employee access specifically. And have enjoyed doing that. I think it's a great mission. That goes back to my days in partnering with some others and starting Money Network, one of the first payroll card programs out there. And during that cycle of my life, we were enabling access for folks that didn't have access to direct deposit and didn't have access to electronic payments and those sort of things. And then we fast forward to where we are today, and we're doing the same thing in regards to providing better access and additional access. But now it's for, providing people access to wages and tips when they earn it. All right. And when they need it in many cases. So that's really what drives me. And and those things weren't necessarily always tied together, but it's been something that's been rewarding as I've done this work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always been sort of this pressing, urgent need for employees to have access, some more immediacy of access to their pay. And there's this whole thing around that with payroll processes and all sorts of stuff. And it's really interesting to me to see how the fintech players like Instant Financial are really delivering an impact and sort of changing the calculus a little bit. Is kind of evolved the disbursement side of the equation for payroll. And I think that's, what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Because over the same time frame, the last sort of 10, 15 years or so, where this slow transformation has taken place, where now we've kind of reached a tempest where it's really taking off. I was just at PayCon, the Payroll Congress, a few weeks ago, and the FinTech presence was just, it was undeniable. But over the same time frame, there's been more attention or more interest on the part of employers in employee wellness and financial wellness, and I can't help but think that maybe there's been sort of one sort of feeding the other. They're kind of making each other possible. We have earned wage access, but we also have early pay, and these facilitate employees' work-life balance and these sorts of things. I'd love to maybe just pick your brain about this topic today, Tal, and maybe we can start with the following question, which is, what has the last decade plus brought when it comes to the dance between FinTech and payroll technology? How has FinTech transformed the disbursement side of pay? What's happened?
Yeah, that's and I'll go back, and I may do this because I was part of starting one of those businesses and then part of one of these businesses, which is I really think you started seeing FinTech get involved in how people access their pay and improving the wellness of individual employees by making sure they had access. And again, that goes back to, putting cards in place, right? Visa debit cards in place in the workplace to make sure people had access. We've evolved past that now, thank goodness. I mean, there's still those cards are in place in many places and are needed and are used. But now we're talking about doing that virtually, right? Using virtual cards to deliver the same payments as needed. And then in 2015, 2016 is when you started seeing earned wage access evolve in the marketplace. And originally it was not well received. I was not in the space at the time, but I knew some of the founders of the businesses that were, and was helping talk to employers that were involved with us at Money Network at the time. Um, and those many same employers are involved with Instant today, but talking to them at the time, they weren't really engaged by the idea of earned wage access. It was a foreign concept. And I think as we moved forward, we improved delivery of that access. You see FinTech businesses become more engaged and work hand in hand with some of our HR tech businesses and partners out there to make sure we deliver it in a way that works for the employer and works for the employee. But FinTech continues to evolve so that access is improving. Access has improved over the last couple of years within Instant and other businesses as well. And the evolution and the combination of both HR tech and FinTech makes these solutions available, right? And we have to work together to deliver that.
I'm curious. You've covered a lot of ground there. Really interesting stuff. The earned wage access. I must confess, I didn't realize it went back that far. I thought it was maybe about 5, 6 years ago. Um, what was the pushback in the
Yeah, the
beginning?
push
Yeah, what was that?
it was really interesting at the time. So we would go in and people who are competitors of mine today, I was working as a partner of theirs, and we would go into some of our clients and talk about this and the idea of providing the access needed to be able to deliver wages to employees. Um, there was a significant reluctance there, right? The data that was going to be needed to do that, the access to census files, as an example, was something that was such a foreign concept for payment of wages. Now, some of it too, Brent, and I think this is something we could talk about more as well. Some of it too was not a complete understanding of where employees were by the employer, right? They didn't, there wasn't a full understanding of employees' access and the things that they were doing to get from paycheck to paycheck. There was not a full understanding, that we have such a high percentage of employees in the U.S. today that are living paycheck to paycheck. And one of the ironic things about it, most of us always think, and I'm including myself in that group, we always believe their employees are maybe doing a little bit better than they are. If you're running a large enterprise organization, your concept of how your employees are accessing their pay and how they feel about their financial wellness um, is something that's it's just a little bit foreign to the people making these decisions. At least it was then, but I think there's a better awareness now.
Yeah, yeah. And there's that sort of abstract sort of partition between where does work end and life begins, and how much is your employer really responsible for your life afterward, but then pay is such a measurable impact on the life outside of work that that's a very difficult line to kind of demarcate there, right? It's
Yes.
really interesting. And then you think about you're just making me think of so many things. You think about sort of the traditional, conventional mindset of a payroll department, right? And the organizations that are home to these payroll departments,
Yeah.
in terms of, okay, what is our responsibility really? I want to thank you for providing some insight on a recent magazine article I wrote for HR.com around FinTech's impact on all of this. And there's just this interesting sort of dance that's been changing, and how we're dancing and all this kind of stuff. I would like to ask you around this. So we have some regulations also that are in play, and maybe we'll get into that too. But But what was sort of the tipping point in your opinion? I know we're kind of deviating a little bit. We're going off on a tangent, but I think it's really important. What was that tipping point where have you seen the tipping point where payroll departments are kind of seeing the other side of things and really sort of understanding this or really grasping this need on the part of their employees?
Yeah,
Because
we
I know you
have.
have some research around this too at Instant.
We do, and we do know that, one of the things we know for sure is that 86% of employees desire to have access to their pay every day, right? I mean, it's very significant. We know that it improves um, their financial wellness in general, but also their satisfaction with their work, right? And I often like to say that financial wellness starts with financial access, right? It's hard to talk about financial wellness and savings or any of these other things if I'm just trying to get to my next paycheck, you know? And but I think there was a tipping point. That tipping point, I'm reluctant to tie it to COVID, but there was a there was a time there in 2020 when things certainly shifted to making sure employees had that access. I think some of it was, it's hard for one or two or three businesses, and we've got a number of businesses in this space. I think that collectively as an industry, there was enough information that became available during that time that we became as an industry, as providers of earned wage access. I think our messaging became prevalent and more prevalent in total, right? That we started to getting more attention as to a benefit in general. And so I think that that tipping point was in sort of 2019, 2020. As we moved through there, you started seeing significant growth in these businesses. And again, these were businesses, at least three, four, or five of them that had started in 15 and 16 or so, including Instant, um, that really struggled outside of certain verticals to get significant traction, right? But then I think we saw a few major retailers in the marketplace adopt earned wage access. We saw a few large enterprise organizations, and it became more prevalent. You started to see partnerships between us as Instant and other, HR tech providers, payroll tech providers, and our competitors with other HR tech providers and payroll tech providers. And I think that all of that sort of reached a tipping point in that late 2019, 2020, and you started seeing really growth in the space. Now, I will tell you, our office is in Alpharetta in Atlanta, and I look around the Atlanta market, there are still a large number of enterprise businesses in the Atlanta market specifically, just because I've looked at those businesses and I know those businesses that have not chosen instant pay today, right? And so I think there's still an opportunity. There's a significant opportunity for us as an industry and us as Instant to grow. And our challenge every day is to make sure we get the word out to management teams and executive teams about the value of this benefit to their employees. And I really believe it'll become table stakes. And I don't think we've reached the point of where every HR department and every payroll department, I know we haven't, has adopted this. And that Atlanta market is a good example of that.
Yeah, yeah. I want to go back to COVID because it's totally okay that you mentioned COVID as a tipping point because it makes complete sense. There was a uh, an unprecedented pause in how we do things, and a pivot, and it got us to think about a lot of things. We had to do a lot of things. We had to pivot and do a lot of things right away that we hadn't before, and then we had this time to reflect in a new environment on some other uh, givens, supposed postulates around how we get paid and all this kind of stuff. And so it makes sense that there was time to think about, oh yeah, just as we were thinking, oh yeah, I can work from home and I can be just as productive, at least in some roles, right?
Yeah.
And why do I have to wait 2 weeks to get paid? What's the impediment here? All right, there's a technology, and I think you had that also with the convergence of the consumer tech experience, right? Where there's a
Yep.
real immediacy there, and you have buy now, pay later apps and this sort of stuff, and there's all sorts of accommodation and convenience worked into it that that wasn't that the employee employer relationship wasn't really wasn't keeping pace with that, and so there was a bit of a nudge to get there. So I'm glad you brought up COVID. I think it absolutely was a watershed moment. It was a pivot point. Um, where are things going? Like if you were to gaze into your crystal ball, what's in store for us in the near future? I think we hit on that a little bit. Maybe if you could touch on a little bit more, but also the not too near future. Like what is pay going to look like in the t- next few years, but also say 10 years from now, even
Yeah.
15 years from now? It's kind of a lot to grasp.
I think, Brent, there's a history of payroll that we can look at, right, too, as well. And I like to draw on that a little bit. I mean, if we go back and look at the U.S. History on access to pay, we were most of our families were in an agrarian society, back 100 years ago and 50 years ago, whatever it may be, and most everybody had access to the pay, certainly every day, or certainly every week, and maybe every day in many cases, and then we move forward and you start seeing the advent of payroll checks, and payroll checks sort of spread things out a little bit to weekly. And then we go into, when direct deposit started coming of age. And then you started seeing the spread of pay start from weekly to biweekly. And now we have people that only have regular pay on a monthly basis. I know the state of California, as an example, pays their employees on a monthly basis. I have a son that works in a university and they pay on a monthly basis. So, and to me, that is so that's what we're trying to correct. And I think we're working our way back to that. And I think people are seeing that that's going to be a necessary benefit as we go forward. So today, what we do is we do provide access to those wages, 50% of those wages, 50% of your gross pay every day, tips included. Tips can be 100% of your tip pay every day. And what we want to do is we want to continue to message that, right? We still have work to do as Instant and as an industry to make sure that people understand that benefit is available and the importance of that benefit for their employees. And we also have as an industry and as Instant, need to continue to improve that access for both the employees and the employers. Today, we need a census file to do what we do with an employer. We need a time and attendance file to do what we do with an employer. I think there will be a time where those are more integrated, and so that it is not an integration that we do. In many cases today, we have prior integrations before we roll out a new employer. But in some cases, we may work on that integration after the sale. I think you'll see a situation as we go forward so that both time and attendance, payroll, census file integrations, and access to wages is all collective within a system that the employer can access, and it becomes, again, automatic delivery of wages every day, right? I think that's ultimately where we need to get. And it's again, it is the employee's wages. That's where I struggle a little bit in regards to sometimes it doesn't feel like our message is getting through in some places. And to me, it is so obvious. It is obvious that you have earned these wages today. They are the employee's wages. Why not provide access? Because we as Instant aren't charging the employer to provide this access, right? And employees have access at no cost in many cases. And I think that's it generally across the industry. So we're talking about a benefit that can be available to employees. And it's up to us as we go forward to answer your question specifically is to make that easier for the employer, both the messaging and the delivery. And then access for the employee will continue to improve as well so that it becomes part of what they do. Today, we're a little bit outside trying to fit within the existing payroll process. And I think where we need to be is we become part of that process holistically upon delivery.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That makes a lot of sense because, there's, for the longest time, payroll departments have served two stakeholders, which at first blush, it seems like both stakeholders, the employer and the employee, it seems at first blush that they should fall under the auspices of the payroll department of the pay, but really we're talking about money that's exchanging hands. So the money, when it still belongs to the employer, still in, excuse me, still in the possession of the employers. I want to give a nod to this idea that the moment the employee has worked those hours, they have earned that money, right? But it's
Absolutely.
still, but the employer is still in the possession of the money. So we have this built-in sort of exchange of the money where it goes from the employer to the employee. And when you think about it, really the employee, there is a different supply, I think, to fulfill the demand of employees. And that's where I think it's really interesting, where FinTech is kind of coming in there, and it's almost bifurcating the pay process. Disbursements was for the longest time payroll also handled, right? But now you have a handoff
That's right.
where it goes to the FinTech player that's able to provide that employee with far more with more options and choice and how they get paid, how, when, and where they get paid, which is, partially facilitated by evolution in the regulatory framework, and also by innovation and technology, where we finally have this ability to kind of treat it as two different markets, really.
Absolutely. And a recent innovation for us too, just to sort of build on that is, many employees previously, historically, have not had access to the banking services and some of the financial wellness tools and things that we're able to provide. So that's the other thing that we can fit in as a fintech provider is app-based choice, right? Within our app, they can see what they need in regards to banking services. If they need a bank, they can set that up. If they don't need a bank, that's fine. They can move the funds to whatever bank it is that they're using, but we're able to create those choices in partnership with the employer and for the benefit of the employee. And then you start layering on, once you have that relationship, we are now layering on other financial wellness benefits. Again, for us, financial wellness, I believe, starts with financial access. We've provided that access. Now we can start talking about things like credit builder, right? In many cases, people need to build credit just to be able to get a car loan or a home loan or whatever it may be. So we're providing access to that. We're providing access to dental care, right? Maybe they have a health care plan with their employer, but they don't have dental access. And so we'll do that. Maybe they have healthcare insurance, but they don't have telemed available. So we're providing access to that. All of that. So again, once you have that relationship with the employer and the employee, and you start providing the financial access, then you can really get serious about these other financial wellness tools that we're making available now too. I think in the past, maybe the mistake we've made within HR tech, payroll tech, and fintech is there have been financial wellness tools available in the marketplace, many of them not adopted very well because, again, it comes back to, I just need access, right? I just need access to my money so I don't have to go down the street to a check cashing place to get that access. Now that we provided that, now let's start talking about these other tools and these other financial wellness benefits that we can provide. I think in some cases, we were swapping places with those, and that didn't work as an industry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That, and thinking about the future of what those options can be for the on the financial wellness piece of it, there are a lot of things that employees, once they get their pay, even if they finally have their access and they don't have enough time to go do the research on their own to figure out, oh, how do I invest a little bit in crypto? Where do I go for a safe place to invest in crypto? Or how do I start investing in stocks, right? And these kinds of
Yep.
things, and having that ability maybe within an app to give them just that little nudge, or giving them that little signpost that they can say, oh, I'll go there and I'll learn more about that and do it. And these sorts of things. So just elevating, expanding upon, building upon that financial wellness. It's really exciting to think about where this is going. And now that this juggernaut, or this hurdle, I guess is a better word for it,
Yeah.
is finally kind of being knocked over. We're finally surmounted at, oh, we're almost there. Tal, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. This is a really important discussion. I'm so glad that you joined us.
Super, Brent. Thank you for having me. Enjoyed it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Workforce Management and Payroll Insights by HR.com. We hope today's episode brought you valuable insights and fresh perspectives on the future of payroll and workforce management. Be sure to check out more episodes and explore resources at HR.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep innovating and making a difference in the world of payroll and workforce management.